Hey guys, so we're going to talk about something a little bit different on our channel today, and that is gardening. So as many of you know, we've been living on our property for about 7 or 8 months now. Spring is here, the snow's gone, and we're getting the bug to grow our own food. So we don't know that we're going to have a huge thriving garden this year. That's going to come with time, but we really want to make a video on starting your garden. And one of the things we really want to focus on is amending your soil. So over the past few weeks or so, we've done a little bit of research, and we're really trying to find ways to make our soil as healthy as possible so that when we're ready to plant, those vegetables are allowed to thrive. And we really want to take a low maintenance approach, but what we're doing already on our property, we feel like we're doing a lot of things naturally that could help amend our soil that we're able to implement with just a little bit of research.
Yeah, the soil that we have is not super, so Alyssa's been doing a lot of research about what we could kind of do to get it more super-ish. And so we kind of talk a little bit about that in this video. It's not meant to be like, we're not gardening experts, so we're not trying to give you advice. We're just trying to kind of give you ideas on how to keep life simple.
We just want to share what we're doing.
Yeah, and we aren't claiming to know it all, so we'll just give it a shot. And if it grows food, cool. I mean, can't be that hard, right? Anyway, so yeah, we wanted to share some of that stuff in this video. We've got a few things that we've been doing, so we'll kind of jump into those and talk about each one a little in detail.
So one of the first things that we did that was recommended to us by some successful gardeners in the area was to simply bring in some topsoil. It's not that we can't work with what we have, but our ground is very compacted with a lot of rock. So we figured that this was a really simple way that we could do on a moment's notice, was simply go visit our local garden and lawn care center and bring in a bunch of topsoil. It's relatively inexpensive, especially if you're only getting a couple yards. I think we only got a yard and a half, something like that. And we were able to go pick it up ourselves, which was awesome. And now we have a couple of very nice raised beds, which helps keep things a little warmer and get everything off the ground. And it really just gives us a nice space to work with. A second thing we did that was also recommended to us by our friends was to bring in some compost. And again, it's not that we can't make this ourselves, but it simply takes time, and we really wanted to amend the soil immediately so that if we choose to plant something in a month, our soil's good to go and there's a good chance that our veggies will thrive. So many local suppliers have compost available, and again, it's very affordable, especially if you only get a yard or half a yard. And we simply mixed it in with our topsoil. It's probably a little bit hard to tell on the camera, but the compost is a lot darker than the topsoil. It's almost black. A lot of people refer to it as black gold simply because it is so nutrient dense. And we just mixed it in here. So right here you see a little bit of topsoil as well as the compost. Another thing we wanted to share is when doing some online research, I ran into something called biochar. And if you don't know what that is, I'll put a link below this video as to really the technicalities and the science behind it. But basically, it's converting it's what happens when you burn biomass in a low oxygen environment. It results in a charcoaly-like substance, but it's not charcoal. It's very different than charcoal. And this, when added to your soil in about a 1:10 ratio, something in there, it really helps to aerate the soil. It also helps the soil to retain a lot more water, which is really important when you're on an off-grid property and water may be limited, or you simply don't want to water your garden 10 times a day. It also is extremely porous, so it helps to retain a lot of the nutrients. It is important before it goes into your garden to charge the biochar. Because it's porous and it doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it already, it tends to absorb nutrients from surrounding things, such as your plants, which you don't want. But if you put it in something like compost before you add it to your garden, maybe for a couple of weeks, it should leach materials and nutrients instead of absorb them. We chose not to charge this before putting it into our soil because we don't have any veggies, so we figured that with the compost and the topsoil, it should be more than fine when we go to plant our seeds.
Yeah, and the cool thing about biochar is that it's basically just mimicking nature. If you study forest fire habitat, this is basically what a truly good forest fire does. The bad forest fires are the ones that go ripping through this dense undergrowth and they get really hot and they kill everything. But a good forest fire just kind of smolders its way through the forest floor. And the reason it doesn't burn really hot is because there's a lot of fuel and no oxygen, not really. And so it ends up resulting in a bunch of this. If you've ever been out hiking, you'll see just little pockets of char. And if you kind of look at a hillside that's had a good forest fire go through it, it just kind of looks a little bit burnt. But once things start to grow back, they grow back really strong. And so we're kind of just using those same principles, you know, that nature uses. And so the question is, like, what do you make biochar from? And then even better question, how do you make this stuff? Because it's not wood ash. It's in a low oxygen environment. The wood ash is what happens when you burn something out completely, and it's extremely alkaline, and that could really throw off the pH of your garden. So anyway, Alyssa can maybe kind of tell you a little bit about stuff we found around the property, and then a way we found to make the stuff pretty easy.
So basically we found something online. This is called a Biochar We, and in a nutshell, it's really just kind of like a stovepipe material with holes in the bottom, a little hard to see here. And what you do is you collect biomass, and biomass could be just about anything. If you're on a large property like us, or even just in a normal home, chances are you have a lot of scraps around your property. Things that you can include in here are twigs, sticks. Kindling is really good. Things that, you know, a lot of air can circulate around it. Bones, we have a lot of bones on our property, thanks to our neighbor. It's a very long story.
This was a deer. This was a deer bone. Just saying.
So instead of seeing all these bones on our property, now they're in our garden. Circle of life.
Wayne, if you're watching this video, thanks, Wayne.
Yes.
Just want to say thanks.
So basically, you stick all the biomass into the Biochar We and you put it in your fireplace or your wood stove. And the great thing about this is we are already burning our wood stove, so we might as well be making biochar at the same time. And the bone and twigs and sticks, it's not really usable stuff on our property anyways. We're not burning our firewood because we're using that to heat. And the Biochar We doesn't really heat, it just burns. So even if you're in a suburban home, this is something that you could put in your own fireplace, which is really handy. And it makes about, I think we calculated maybe a pound at a time. So obviously it's not gonna fill our entire garden overnight, but over the course of a winter, we feel that for a garden our size, it could be the right ratio of biochar to soil. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we're already doing it anyway, so it wasn't like a huge inconvenience. When Alyssa was telling me about biochar and like the way people make it, I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. It's very elaborate. Not that it has to be, but it's just a lot of work. When we found this, it just kind of worked in with our lifestyle seamlessly. So as a course of heating the cabin all winter long, making biochar. So it's like it's not anything extra out of our day.
You feel a lot more satisfaction when your wood stove is burning, knowing that you're helping the environment.
Yeah, and it doesn't really cool the stove down that much. We found when the damper's shut, so everything's pretty good there. Anyway, so it's just a kind of a cool tool. Makes this make sense. Otherwise, this sounds ridiculous.
And the last measure we've taken to really start amending our soil is starting a compost pile. This is something that I've been wanting to do pretty much my entire adult life, only I've never really lived in a place where I felt was appropriate, or I just simply didn't have the time. But now we have 5 acres of land, and this can sit here on our property very undisturbed. We have a lot of food waste that's coming out of our trailer every single day, such as banana peels, veggie peels, eggs, coffee. Okay, a lot of coffee. It's like our primary food group. Oh, hey, look, Jesse brought me some coffee. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, enjoy.
And all of that can be used to help strengthen our soil versus go to the landfill. So I think that's really awesome. So there's lots of resources on how to start a compost pile, so I won't go into that in this particular video. But basically, in a nutshell, you need to have a lot of carbon and nitrogen. Nitrogen are sources of your food, things like veggies, but you really don't want to include animal products because that could attract animals and things like that and make your compost pile smell really bad. And then carbon includes brown things basically on your property, such as dried leaves, pine needles, which we have an abundance of, sticks, sawdust. Here's some of the pine needles. Basically our entire property is covered in pine needles, so we have an endless source of that. And as you know, we've been making a lot of our own lumber, so we have a lot of sawdust as well. And all of that really helps to cover our pile. We also have things like egg cartons right now because we still have to buy our eggs from the grocery store. So we just tear this up and we have this nice compost pile going. And this is the result of maybe a week and a half. And it's still pretty cold outside, so I don't know that it's actively composting right now. But we're really excited for this over the summer to see how it develops, and hopefully we'll have some beautiful black gold to put into our soil maybe by the end of the summer.
All right, one of the next things that we did for our garden was we got 2 Bengal cats. Just kidding, we got a bunch of rain barrels. Turns out it's a Bengal cat jungle gym. So Alyssa found these barrels on Craigslist, and it was actually kind of one of those you got to get to it quick kind of things, because it sounds like the demand in our area is pretty high, but there's not very many barrels. So what do? Grabbed a cup of coffee, and we took off to go get rain barrels. Oh look, a cup of coffee. Thanks, honey. We knew we were going to need water, and we haven't sorted out our water solution yet. So we're still doing water for our own needs, potable water, but for gardening and other things we don't have that sorted. So we thought as a soft way to start, so we could get going, we'd do rain barrels. I know it's exotic, but we thought we'd just give it a try and see if it'll work. We actually need to have some water available for our hot tub too, and so we thought because we built this deck that we would use some of the rain catchment coming from the roof, and we would just use that for gardening and things. So Alyssa kind of got working on Craigslist and found us a few rain barrels, so we're excited to get those set up. And probably won't provide enough water for an entire summer of gardening. We're not really sure, but it's worth a try, and hopefully it'll work out really well for us. Of course, down the road we plan on doing other water things, but this is a great way just to do a temporary supply of water. You see some criticism online about rain barrels and how much water a yard really takes and how they're silly. But I'll tell you, after living off-grid for a little while, we don't use near the amount of water that the average household does. So we'll have to try this out and see if it'll work well for us. But the total cost, I think, on these barrels was around $120, which is actually pretty good price, because an equivalent tank that we would have to buy would have been somewhere around $300 for an equal-sized tank. So
just to sum up this video, we're just really excited that we're slowly making progress on our fully self-sustainable off-grid homestead, and as we're talking right now, we're standing on our hot tub deck that we built ourselves from trees on our own property. Our hot tub is in the corner there that will soon be fed from the rain, and then the roof from this deck will run off into the rain barrels, which will then feed our organic garden. And then in the background we also have our compost pile, which is going to help feed the garden. And we might also build a compost zip line from the hot tub that will take our banana peels from the hot tub to the compost pile.
Yeah, so put a banana right here and then it goes right into the compost bin. Sounds like a fun project to me.
Now we need a hard cider compost bin too, don't we?
We need a distillery.
Okay, well, we'll work on that next time.
Another video. If you're new to our journey, or if you'd like to follow our off-grid homesteading journey, please follow us on our blog. You can also follow us, of course, here on YouTube. We'll put a subscribe button right here, right where the garden is. And then follow us on our blog. It's purelivingforlife.com. We do a lot more in-depth blog posts and things over there that we don't share on YouTube. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram. If you like those types of things, please follow us over there. We'll put a link in the description below. And we tend to put micro posts over there, things that we don't put on YouTube or on our blog. So if you like those and you like to get more frequent updates, please follow us over there. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.